you can't be lucky every single year.
Nope.
There's no way if someone's doing it, someone like you that's going out and killing elk every year.
There's always a guy or two in the group that kill elk, right? We're in the same area. We've hunted together, so they know how we hunt, right? It's like one of the things is like, I didn't sleep in 3 days this week. The guys are like, well, he's lucky. Well, probably not.
I was like, well, if I throw a mic on, then I can help others the way that these people have all helped me.
Born in the heart of the Pennsylvania deer camp. With the help of experts, friends, and local legends, we bring you valuable knowledge and powerful stories for your hunting adventures. Welcome to the East Meets West Hunt Podcast with your host, Beau Martonik.
All right, we're recording. Zach Bowhay, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, here we are.
Hey, it's a long time coming, man. I'm
right.
excited to be able to have you on. I think it's been probably 7 or 8 years since I found your stuff on YouTube, and as I'm still trying to learn how to become an elk hunter, that's where I was getting a lot of information from you, and then out of the blue, you sent me a message on Instagram talking to me about whitetail hunting, and I was like, this is really funny.
Saying I like your content. Yeah, I'm trying to learn, and so it's just funny that they cross paths that way. It's funny. So
yeah, it definitely is, and I was just talking to Brad Brooks from Margali. I just had him on the show here last week, and we were talking, and he's like loving whitetail hunting too. And I'm like, there's this theme with all these Western guys that as all of us East Coast guys are pushing out west, you guys are like, hey, we're gonna come back over your way to fill in your.
It's funny, man. Everybody people reach out to me all the time on social media, and they're like talking about elk hunt. I'm like, hey, while we're talking, it's like they're all dying to come out here. That like we are just like Brad and me, just like living the dream to them out here. It's like, man, I just want to sit in a tree stand in the Midwest is what I really want to do. So that's funny. But my wife thinks I've lost my mind. Like she's just beside herself. She doesn't know what to do. So
with the whitetail thing?
Oh yeah. She's like, I married an elk hunter. This is ridiculous. I mean, I'm just obsessed with it. All I do is listen to literally, I'm not blowing smoke. Like I listen to your podcast. I listen to Kenyon's podcast like every week. Like I can't wait to hear, how did I just forget his name? Foundation's podcast. How am I forgetting his name? My phone's ringing. My wife's calling me. Brianna. Oh, I'm on a podcast. I think she about dialed me. Tony Peterson. Like I can't wait. I love his Foundations podcast, just like short to the point every week. Like it's Tuesday. I listened to it today. Right. And it's just like, I'm listening to podcasts. I'll be laying in bed watching YouTube videos, whitetail hunting. And she's just like, you were losing your mind. And I'm like, oh, I guess, but I don't know. It's the new thing. So
is it because, do you think it's because like, not that anybody ever masters, say, a specific thing like elk hunting, but you've been doing it for so long and that you're just like, I want a new challenge.
Yeah. It's just, like you said, I haven't mastered it, but I figured a lot out. I've been doing it since I was 12 years old, and so I still learn all the time, but like for whitetail, it's all new to me. You know what I mean? Like I've shot a couple with a rifle, but like, as far as the tree stands and all that, it's just like all new. It's like starting over. So I just love it. I've just been having a blast. And it's tough in Idaho. I mean, it's real tough in Idaho, especially because I don't live in northern Idaho, So it's the really low density, lots of access issues. I mean, like one deer every 5 days by a trail camera type of stuff, So it's, but still, but I'm trying to travel to hunt. I went to Missouri last year. I didn't kill one, but I'm just learning, just having a blast doing it. So,
Oh, that's so cool to be able to see that. I am trying to. I was actually talking to Brad Brooks about it. That of doing a Western whitetail hunt. Yeah. So him and I were talking about doing one in Idaho next year, and just giving it a shot and trying it. I've been talking about it long enough. It's time I just do it.
I think some of those higher density areas, like especially up north, if you can get a tag, like, the issue there getting tags now, but I think a lot of those areas, like, especially where, like the mountain stuff, like, I
Yeah.
think you could do really well. And it's really, I don't think it's tapped. I don't think there's that many people really doing it. You know what I mean? I think there's guys obviously there's some guys really doing it, but I think you
Yeah.
could do really well if you actually went and hit it hard. So go on.
Well,
Go on.
I mean, think about it. Especially guys from say out east, it's like, or the Midwest, it's like, okay, do I want to go to northern Idaho and deal with grizzly bears, wolves, mountain lions, all this other stuff, or do I want to hunt, just as big of deer at home where I know it? And it's
Right.
like, I get it,
Yeah.
I can understand why the people aren't flocking there, and with you guys, Idaho is that's the place where you either fill either a mule deer or a whitetail tag,
Right. You
right?
can buy either one. Yeah. One or the other.
Okay,
So. Yeah.
gotcha.
And so, yeah, so that's hard for me too, because like I want to have a mule deer tag because like I shot my biggest buck ever stalking an elk.
Really?
The biggest buck I've ever killed in my life. I was stalking an elk in archery season and happened on this big buck, like 180-inch buck, and shot with my bow. Yeah. And I've had a few opportunities, so I want to have a mule deer tag in my pocket because I elk hunt a lot. You never know what you're going to see, but it's just like, but I want to hunt whitetail. So I'm really have to look at other states because I really want to hunt whitetails too. So.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's funny. I've only had a couple mule deer tags in my pocket. But when I've been elk hunting in places where I didn't have mule deer tags is when I run into like big deer that are just standing there, like asking to be shot. But like, if you had that tag, it didn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
The one year, like, I think it was 2000, long time ago. I think 2006. My dad and I know it was 2006 because his first year I drew a muzzleloader deer tag for like November. It was the first muzzleloader tag I'd ever drawn. And we were like, been seeing these big bucks up on this ridge, and we were elk hunting, and we were like crossing this creek at midday, and those bucks had come off. And I'm not lying, like these 3 big bucks standing in the creek bottom 20 yards away, just looking at us, drinking water. And I was like, I didn't have a tag. And at that time, actually, we can buy 2 tags in Idaho. Like we can buy a non-resident tag if they're left over, And for a long time, there was a lot of non-resident tags. And at that time there was, but I was like, I was 25 years old, and I was like, I don't need to buy another tag, and sure enough, ran to a big old buck and don't have a tag, and that sucks bad. So,
yeah. I forgot that's how Idaho was like that for elk tags too, right? Like you can get a couple elk tags.
We can still get them now. They're getting harder, but man, for years, I don't know when it was. It must have been 2000. I don't know, 15 years ago. They maybe even more than that. They just weren't selling the tags, especially once the wolves really took over, and like all of us Idahoans convinced everybody else that the elk were dead. Like literally, I think they convinced people that the elk were dead, and a lot of people weren't buying tags here for quite a while, and so there was a lot of non-resident tags left over, and the Fish and Game's like, we'll sell these to these guys, and so for years we could buy 2 tags. Like you could kill a bull in the middle of September and just go buy a non-resident tag. You have to pay a non-resident fee, but now like you probably better, most years you got to buy one ahead of time. They go on sale like August 1st for us. Like the ones that get turned back, we can buy them, and like the deer tags sell out super fast. Sometimes there's elk tags left, but for years we could buy 2 elk tags and 2 deer tags. You got to open a day of rifle season with 2 mule deer tags in your pocket every year if you wanted to. So.
Dang. Well, yeah, that's like, yeah. So you probably picked up my elk tag I turned back in last year.
Probably, yeah. Probably. I did have 2. I did buy 2 last year. I didn't kill 2 bulls, but I killed a bull. I just doesn't have a lot of time. Usually I have an out of state hunt, and I didn't last year. So I'm like, I'm going to buy another tag. And I shot a bull on like the 10th or 11th. And then I passed up some bulls, but I didn't end up shooting another one. But
oh, that's.
I don't know if I'll buy 2 this year or not, but we'll see.
That's comical. Everyone that's listening, from PA and the East Coast are just like shaking their heads, like we're just trying to get one. We're just trying to get one elk tag.
It's such a stupid system right now. Idaho is like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm so torn about it because a lot of my two best hunting buddies are from Oregon and Montana. I mean, my two best friends are from Oregon and Montana, and it's like I want to hunt with them, and it's just such a joke getting these tags for you guys now. It's just the system is not effective. It's I don't get it. Like it is a draw, effectively, right?
Yeah,
You jump
that's
on,
exactly
you
it.
get online, and you're putting this waiting queue that is a draw, right? So like make it a draw then, so dudes don't got to take the day off work and worry about it. Just like make it a draw if that's what you're
Or
going to do.
fly out there. I know multiple people that flew out there so they
So
could go
that was
into
working good.
places.
But now that's as busy as anywhere now. Like there was tons of guys. I went down to the local store here this year. Well, there hadn't been anybody, and I asked her the day before because I had a buddy who wanted to buy a tag, and she's like, "Dude, I've had people calling me all week. Like we're miles from. I mean, we're hours from an international airport. I mean, but dudes are doing it, But that's the thing, and they need to make it. They either need to make it a draw or they need to make it, if you want to buy the tag, you have to be there in person by yourself. Like you can't have anybody else buy it for you. So I've heard horror stories of guys like buying 20 with people in line behind them. Just stand there.
Yep.
They're buying 20 tags. Like what a joke. Somebody flies out here from Pennsylvania and has to stand in line behind some joker who's buying 20 tags for his buddies. Like,
Yep.
or getting paid to buy them. You know what I mean? Or somebody paying guys to buy them for them. So,
I wouldn't doubt that that's not a business right now, or at least in the last couple
why
of years.
wouldn't it be smart for you? Instead of flying out here, why wouldn't it be better to pay somebody $100, $500?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes. I'd have more than that than just in the flights.
right. And then gas and taking off time away from what you want to be doing. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It went smoother this year, and so maybe they're thinking it's okay, but I just don't think it's going to last. So,
Well, I know a guy that.
What's that?
I knew a guy that came to my scouting camp that I had that he said he flew out there and didn't get a tag.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah,
That hurts.
I was like, oh man.
Yeah, man. Like I think they either need. I think if they made it a draw with a 1 year wait period, dudes could hunt every other year. Because I don't know. The worst part is nobody cared until they made it limited. Nobody cared until they're like, oh, we're going to limit this, and people now all of a sudden it's a frenzy. Nobody even cared. We could buy 2 tags anytime we wanted. Nobody was buying them. You know what I mean? And now it's like, oh, now we have to be in line. It's the cool thing to do now. To be in
Scarcity.
line.
It's the scarcity,
Right.
the aspect of it. It's like with anything. It's like there's a limited thing. You feel like you gotta take advantage of it.
Right.
I mean, in 2019, when that was the first and only time I hunted in Idaho, I bought that tag 2 weeks before I went.
Right.
And then the next year it completely changed, and
Yeah,
that wasn't.
crazy.
It was 2020 is when it wasn't possible to do that anymore. It's wild.
And people are getting mad, like a lot of people. Like this is one of the things that Tony Peterson's always griped about on his podcast about residents hating non-residents. And like, I didn't hate non-residents. What I hated about Idaho was that these pockets of hunting areas get overblown, right? Like all of a sudden this zone's popular, and so everybody's going there, And so what was happening was all the non-residents were hunting like 4 zones in the middle of the state, 4 or 5 zones, And I didn't want them to eliminate non-residents. I wanted them to disperse non-residents because literally there was no more residents hunting a lot of these zones. There was more. I kept telling people, I was fighting with the guy who's the president of Idaho State Bow Hunters. I'm like, there's more non-residents in the zone that I hunt than there is residents. And he's like, that's not true. You guys all just say that. So I did some digging. Well, guess what? There was more non-residents than there was residents hunting my zone that I hunt in. And non-residents are here to hunt, right? Like you draw a tag from where you live and you spent $650 for a tag and $150 for a license and $1,000 in gas and food and all that stuff to get here. You're here to hunt, right? Like where guys like my brother buys a tag every year, he might not even go hunting. You know what I mean? Like, and so you have 1,000 plus dedicated, hard ass non-resident hunters, and I'm a non-resident hunter a lot. So I don't dislike non-resident hunters. I actually like them more than the resident hunters usually. Like they're usually nicer and more respectful, to be honest, because they're just glad to be there, right? But
Yeah.
but it's like, dude, we got to disperse these hunters. Like I don't care how many, keep the number the same. I don't care, but we just have to disperse them. And they did, and it's made the hunting better, I think, for everybody. I think if you go back to the zone you had, again, you will have a better hunt than you did pressure-wise because there's just less people now.
Yeah.
And that's like my buddies from Oregon and Montana are like, dude, this is ridiculous. There's too many non-residents here. Like they literally were saying that as non-resident hunters. So yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. So
it's that balance of opportunity versus experience. I mean, there's that balance across the board of like you want opportunity to be able to go hunt elk every year, but you don't want that opportunity if the experience sucks. So it's like this. I mean, I agree with you. I think it would be like if you just call it a draw like it is, but like make it to where, you know, it's every other year. Or I don't know. I'm not going to claim to know the exact solution of it. But, you know, even, for example, like Montana, as messed up as their system is, hard to understand sometimes. I like the fact that I know that every couple of years I can get a tag in Montana. You know, it's like I know that if I put, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, I might be able to get one every year, but I'm really rolling the dice and not, you know, potentially not getting a point. So I just do it. It's like, okay, every couple of years I'm going to hunt Montana, and it seems to, you know, work out there. Maybe people think differently, but I feel like it works pretty decent.
And the thing about Idaho's system that pisses me off the most right now is you can't plan hunts with your buddies now.
Yeah.
Like you can't, because odds are, if you get online, you and your buddy you're gonna be 12,000th in the queue, and your buddy's gonna be 2,000th. Well, he can buy the tag, but by the time you get there, there's not gonna be a tag, and so they need to either let dudes enter the queue together, where when they get through, they can buy 2, 3, or 4 tags, whatever, or they need to make it a draw where you can apply with your buddies. You know what I mean? Because it's like if you're drawing a limited entry tag in Utah, like it shouldn't be a group hunt, right? Whatever. But like you're drawing a general tag. Ultimately, that's what it is. A general over the counter tag that they've just limited. You should be able to go with your buddies, man. Like that's the fun of it. And elk are hard to kill, but they're hard to kill and manage by yourself. You know what I mean? So if you're the one with the tag and you get out here, like it'd be nice to have some help when you kill a bull.
Yeah. Like that's a completely different. Like you said, it's different when you're talking about limited entry stuff. But when you're thinking of an opportunity type hunt, like a general or over the counter type hunt, I talked to so many people that were like, you know, that used to go in groups to Idaho. You know, it'd be like every year that it was just like the boys got back together, whether it was old college buddies or people in the military together, whatever it was, they all got together and just, you know, would go on a trip. And it was more about them getting together than it was even the hunt itself. Obviously they were there to hunt, but it completely changed that whole dynamic. You know, even the first year, the only year I went, it was, you know, me and my cousin and one of my best friends got to go together and hunt. And after I killed my bull, I was helping them. And then last year when I drew a tag or got a tag in the over the counter system, it was just me. I ended up turning back in, but it would have been different of like, okay, I'm going, you know, by myself essentially versus having, you know, my buddies there.
Yeah. And it's changed drastically since 19. I mean, like these people jumping in the system now, because it's just like you said, the scarcity mindset. They're jumping in. They think this is how it is. And it's like, dude, 2019 was not that long ago. And things were way different then. You know, you could just buy a tag. That being said, there was going to be 5 million people when you went.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can still kill elk. I mean, I still killed elk all the time, but it really was taken away from the experience of it. Just so many people. I mean, you've watched some of my videos. Actually, 19, you know, I switched zones because I was so tired of the people. I actually filmed a hunt in 18 and showed some trailheads. I was just like, dude, like this is not fun anymore. You know, like trailheads I hunted growing up, you know, there'd be a couple of rigs, like 19 trucks at the trailhead. It's like, dude, like it's just at some point, like something had to give. I mean, there was no doubt something had to give, and we're gonna have to give as residents. There's just too many people moving to Idaho, you know. And I've always said, you know, I'm glad I live in an elk state because, like you said, you want to hunt elk every year. Well, those days are coming to an end fast. I mean,
Yeah.
Colorado, the last chip falls this year, right? Where you can buy a tag every year. That's done. And so I think we have a few years left as Idaho residents that we can get tags, you know, and Montana will probably never change. Residents of Montana will probably always have tags. Like those dudes just hunt the shit out of those elk. Like they don't know. But yeah, in Idaho, I mean, I can't imagine it's going to stay this way. I mean, structure is going to have to change. Either season structure, you know, multiple seasons. I don't know what's going to change, but I would guess they're going to cap every zone at some point and make it tough. So,
for the residents as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to have to. I mean, Idaho, it's one of the fastest growing states, you know, and there's just a lot of people moving here and they want to hunt elk. So
yeah, that's you know, Colorado, that's an interesting one. Like, you know, I had some people talking to me about it and they're like, oh, you know, that's so terrible about Colorado. I was like, but the nature, I mean, honestly, it's probably going to be a shit show, whatever happens. Like, and I don't put too much blame on the state agencies because they're trying things to, you know, on the fly, and sometimes it doesn't work, and it is what it is. But like, if anybody hunted Colorado in the last 5 years, it was terrible. Yeah. You know, like my cousin shot a big mule deer last year there, like in an over-the-counter elk area, and I can't remember if it was 50-some rigs that were on the same, like, stretch of road that he was, and he ended up shooting this big mule deer that was, like, in between all these people, and it was just, like, that's not the kind of experience, you know, looking forward to go and hunt the mountains.
And when every hunter, especially your residents, are yelling at you as a state game agency, you have to change this. You know, at some point it's like, we have to change something, you know what I mean? And that's what they did in Idaho. Like the residents had just had enough. Like I've told this before, like I literally had buddies who I grew up hunting with that were as hardcore as me. They quit. They're like, I'm not going anymore. Like it's not fun anymore. And they were still killing animals. This is just too many people. You know what I mean? Like, and I wasn't willing to quit, but it's just like something had to give, you know, and something had to give in Colorado. I mean, there was no way around it. Something had to give in Colorado. And the logical place is they're going to take away from the non-residents. They're not going to take away from their own people if they're going to take it away, you know, and to some point, like I see both sides of like, it is public land. Yeah. Okay. I get that, you know, but it's like those guys are the ones that choose to live there. So there's got to be some perks to it, you know?
Oh yeah.
In every state's that way, right? I mean, there ain't many, even whitetail states, these guys are getting preference over, you know, they're griping. The whitetail guys are griping over the Western hunters. Is like, you guys are getting preference in your state too. Don't give me that line. You're getting preference too. So
yeah. Well, I just, you know, I did a podcast here recently on the elk draw in Pennsylvania, and you know, people were like, yeah, you know, that they need to do this for non-residents, or they need to stop letting non-residents do it. I was like, hold up a second, like. Wait, do you like going out west and hunting elk, and do you like doing that? Like, think about, you know, if you were put in these other situations, I am not, you know, against the non-resident thing. Now, I do believe there should be, you know, an increase in price and everything else. You're coming into,
right.
Yeah, it's public land, but it's coming into the state that you know, live in. Like you said, there's got to be perks to that. But it's it's a really interesting, and like you said, like the game agencies, they're not going to win no matter what. Like people are going to be upset no matter how that all plays out. You know,
you see the same thing like in Idaho on forums, or we need to get rid of all the non-residents. Well, that's a dumb statement. That's not going to happen. That's not that. Like I do not want that by any means. I don't want that. But you know, it's like those people can't even be in the conversation. Like.
No.
Because that's not going to happen. The game agencies can't survive if they do that because the non-residents pay all the money, right? And so it's like, it was just like when they said, we need to kill all the wolves. Well, that's off the table because that's not going to happen. So let's remove that from the conversation. Let's remove that we're not going to have any non-residents for the conversation because that's not going to happen. So let's work on what we can work on because that's not Right. So I don't know. Some people are just nuts. So,
Well, that's like bitching like the sky is blue, and it's like, okay, there's nothing you can do about that. So maybe maybe you put up a porch with a roof or something to get some shade.
right.
Like figure out what you can do to work with this situation versus just complaining to complain about it. But
Yeah.
like with that, as far as like how has that changed your elk hunting through the years? I mean, you've still been successful with it. Was it trying to, were you still able to hunt the same areas? I know you said you switched, that one year, but like, did you
Yeah.
have to change up some things?
I mean, you've had to evolve with it, man. Like, and that's another thing. Like I said, I've talked about this in the past too, in articles and on podcasts. Like, also had buddies who are just like, man, I'm just not going to do it no more, And it's just like I can equate it to my dad. Like in the '60s, we had like the best mule deer hunt in the world. Like in Idaho was just ridiculous in the '60s, right? And they're killing everybody killed big bucks. All you had to do was drive out Thanksgiving, kill a big buck, right? Well, that's obviously not that way anymore. And so my dad, like, he doesn't even hunt mule deer. He hasn't in years, doesn't care. If he draws a good tag, he will, but it's just like, it's not like it was, and the elk hunting in Idaho where I live when I was a kid was really good. Like when I was first old enough to hunt, it was really good. Like if I knew if I knew then what I know now, I would have killed some really big bulls. You know what I mean? But we just had to evolve with the times. You got to be willing to, I've had to be willing to change my tactics, spot and stalk, or become a better caller, become a smarter hunter. And some people are just, I don't know, it's that whole 10%er deal that you hear guys talk about is true. Some dudes are just willing to do what it takes. And it's hard to, like, you ask these guys that kill elk all the time or kill whitetails all the time or whatever, like, you hear them on the podcast, what's the secret thing? Like, most of these guys can't even tell you what the secret thing is. Like, they've just changed with the times and they've just got better at their craft, right? And so, like, I wasn't willing to accept failure. And so I just evolved with the times. And that, I mean, yeah, I don't get to scream at big bulls all the time anymore or just plan on blowing a hyper-lip cow call and have elk come running in. Because at one time we did. Like, we literally just blew cow calls. They just come running. It's when they first invented, like, I just wrote an article about this, but the first time I took a fighting cow call, remember the Carlton fighting cow call?
I do.
You remember that call? Man,
No.
I wish I had one sitting right here. It was like in the early '90s. My dad and I went to a Wayne Carlton seminar, and he had just introduced his fighting cow call, which was like one of the few original estrus type cow calls. And Wayne's, for one thing, he's got a lot older now and he doesn't do stuff, but his seminar was like watching a comedian talk about elk hunting. It was hilarious. But at the end of this thing, I'm like, Dad, you got to buy us these cow calls. And my dad's like, that's the dumbest sounding thing I've ever heard in my life. And we hiked up August 30th. I am not lying, up on top of this ridge, opening day, hotter than hell, sat down, nothing going on. And I'm not exaggerating. This is not my youth saying this. I'm like, Dad, let's blow that elk call. He's like, dude, this is ridiculous. And he blew it, and immediately, like 5 bulls answered. And there hadn't been a peep all morning. There was bulls coming to us from every direction. That the wind just coming up to us. And for about 2 years, we called in elk after elk after elk because nobody used them.
Yeah.
Like, they'd only ever heard that noise from an elk. They'd heard like diaphragm calls, but that drawn out estrus cow call, they hadn't heard it. And it's like, dude, they were just crazy, like just come in. And so, that was awesome, but that's not the case anymore. And so, but some guys get so stuck in that rut. I'm going to go out and I'm going to bugle like I saw on the Primos video, or I'm going to bugle like I saw Trent do on Born and Raised, into every canyon, and it's going to work every time. And it's like, no. Maybe that works for some guy. Trent's a great elk hunter, for example.
Yeah.
He's found his system that works, right? And it's not as easy as it probably looks on video, And the Primos dudes are hunting on premier ranches, so it's definitely not like that. And so, we just had to learn to change with the times. It's actually been probably more rewarding and more fun for me because a lot of the guys did fall off. You know what I mean? And the dudes that stuck it out and perfected their craft, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's been a learning process, and success is a little sweeter now.
Yeah, what you just said is like exactly all the successful whitetail hunters that I know. It's adaptability, being able to recognize a situation, and instead of just being mad about it and stopping or just continually doing it even though it's not working, is like, okay, what is going to work, and just thinking outside the box and trying different things. Like it's I look at that, like, I've even talking to my dad, who's been consistently successful for over 45 years on hunting whitetails, and it's like, the way he hunts now is different than he hunted 30 years ago, even 10 years ago. Like, had to change based off of different things coming in, more different pressures, different all different things that are going on, whether the way the forest management, all these different things that just you have to be able to adapt to it. And it's like, it's just hilarious that no matter who I talk to, of like the ones that are successful year after year, consistently successful, there's similar trends across the board.
Right. Yeah, they're all wired the same. It's like this one area we hunt, it's huge, and we hunt all these canyons now. My dad's been hunting there since like the late 70s, and they used to park their camper in the trailhead of this one canyon. And he's like, this is the only canyon we hunted. And like all these beautiful canyons we hunt now around it, he's like, no, they're just there. That's the only way we went. And I'm like, why? And he goes, we didn't have to go anywhere else. We just went there. It's like,
yeah.
And so that just kind of like a metaphor, like these guys, like, well, this is what I've always done. I've always called exactly this way in this type of terrain. It used to work. Why doesn't it work now? Well, the elk aren't there. That's why it doesn't work now. I mean, honestly, it's like, go figure it out, because there's still success to be had on public land, even heavily hunted public land. There's dudes that are killing elk every year. The same guys killing elk every year. And it's like, they're hunting the same place you are. So what is it? It's they're working harder, they're working smarter. It's one of the two. We're not lucky every year.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you hear that all the time about, like, creating luck, but how true is that? Like, if you can't be lucky every single year, there's no way. If someone's doing it, someone like you that's going out and killing elk every year, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe believe me, I love getting lucky when that does happen, but it's like, that's not going to be the key to success consistently.
Yeah. Well, man, you can hunt the same group. Like, I hunt with a lot of the same guys, It's like there's always a guy or two in the group that kill elk, right? We're hunting the same area. We have we've hunted together, so they know how we hunt, right? It's like, one of the things is like, here's one. I didn't sleep in 3 days this week. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that's it. You know what I mean? Or, but guys are like, well, he's lucky. Well, probably not. He's probably working harder, or he's figured out the right trail to sit on, or he's figured out the right thing to say to an elk, or the right way to hunt this certain canyon. It's like, that's what it is. Like, he figured something out that you haven't figured out yet. I mean, and honestly, for me with elk, generally it's time, and it is the ability to just keep going. I mean, I think almost every elk hunter, that's a common thing you'll find too, is if, like, you talk to really successful elk hunters, we don't hunt 5 days a year. It doesn't work that way. So, I mean, there's no cheat code for that. I found, like, talking on the podcast, even like on the whitetail side, and I'll have people message me in the middle of the rut and be like, oh, I'm doing all these things, and it's what am I doing wrong? And like, what they tell me, I'm like, sounds like you're doing everything right. You just got to keep doing it. Right. Like, there's no shortcuts. Like, I'm sorry, if there's, I was, before I started doing this full time, it was like, yeah, I had a certain amount of vacation days, but I made sure that, as much as I could, that was in the woods. And I understand not everybody can do that, but then that's the nature of it, that there's no shortcuts, that just because something else is going on in life, like, that's,
I don't know how else to
What
put it.
people don't understand is like if you're going on your Western elk hunt and you can finagle an extra 2 days, like that's a big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, any time more you can spend out there. I mean, it's just situate. We can all figure it out. Almost all of us can figure it out. If you have the means, if you have the money and the time to drive from Pennsylvania to Idaho, you can't figure out 2 more days, right? Like most of us, if we can do that, we can do that, you know, and a lot of it is just guys don't want to be gone from their family, and that's fine. Like if that's your priority, that's fine. But if you really want to kill elk, you know, you got to put the time in. I mean, I've just hunted a lot more, and there's a lot of guys way better elk hunters than me. I'm not saying that, but like I've just hunted more days than most dudes have. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I've hunted elk at least 30 days every year for the last 25 years with a bow, you know, usually 40 to 50 days a year between bow and rifle, you know, it's a lot of time to learn. You know, it's not,
A lot of time to learn.
it's nothing special. It's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of days. And you know, the like when I was younger, you know, you're full of piss and vinegar and you can run up the mountains, right? Well, I can't do that as much anymore. But like over those years, what guys need to learn, and I'm trying to put this in my whitetail stuff, right?
Yeah.
Over the years, like I've learned that my success comes from just going. Just be willing to go every single day. And I just don't take days off very often. And so as I've got older, like even though I'm not, you know, way a little more than I should, not as good a shape as I used to be, but the mental aspect has taken over enough now that I can compensate for it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so mentally I've become stronger, even though I'm not as strong. I try to stay in shape, but like we can all be better. Right. But just the mental aspect that it whips the mental side can beat the physical side, like every time. I see guys way younger and way fitter than me just broken in the mountains because, you know, they haven't built that side of it, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, well, and you know, obviously the ultimate is to have both of those things, and then you're
Right.
you know you're unstoppable. Yep. But how what you said earlier, and I think this is just me looking from the outside because I see this too in whitetail, is like how much more success do you think people would have if they were at their spot at first light, or they stayed until it was too dark to see before they went back to camp? Because, right. Like, you know, those first and last moments can be some of the best, or you might not hear that bugle if your camp's on this side of the mountain and you're waiting until light to break up and over, and he might only bugle a couple times, and then you have a location on him, and it's just like that part, like those little things, like you just said, and that comes down to being wore out, like when you get wore out mentally and stuff. I mean, I've fought. I'd be lying if I didn't say on almost every hunt, is there a point where I'm just like, man, I really don't want to take another step here. Like I just, want to take a break and then have, an elk come running into me. But it's just knowing it's like anybody that's consistently successful, it's like, it's they're not willing to quit and right. They'll go till that last minute.
And that's the separator too. Honestly, it's like what you're saying, any type of hunting, but morning and evening is king, right? First and last, that's when, other than peak rut, no matter what species we're talking about, but it's like, you got to be willing to be there at those times, especially when they're not rutting, because that's when the only time they're going to be feeding. So like, you got to be willing to be out there. So like, if you have to have a nap, take one at 1 p.m. You know what I mean? Take one in the middle of the day when nothing is going on, but like, man, that's one of those things, like, that's honestly my superpower, I think. Like, I can just go elk hunt for 30 days. And I'm not saying that I'm hiking 15 miles a day. I'm not saying that, but like, I can get up every morning and I can go hunt elk every morning, and I can take a break. And a lot of times I'll go back to camp in the middle of the day. Like, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I backpack all the time. I love backpack hunting, but I spend way more time day hunting than I do backpack hunting. I've killed way more elk day hunting than I have backpack hunting. And it's just like, go back to camp if you want to. Some guys won't because they don't want to expend that energy, right? Stay on the hill and take a nap. And I'll do both, but it's like just the ability to keep going, is the biggest separator, in my opinion, over the guys that do and the guys that don't. Like that is the thing. Like the dudes, like me right now in a tree stand at 10 a.m. I'm just like, oh, dude, I don't think a buck's going to come by. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like that's harder for me now. Like, than it is for me to be like, well, I'm just going to hike another 3 miles looking for a bull. Like, that's easy. Sit in the tree stand all day. That's not easy. So,
it's so funny you say that, because it's like, for me, I think it's just because, again, I've done it for so long and learned that patient aspect, or knowing that things can change at any moment. Like, I'll be hunting, where I hunt, it's pretty thick woods. You can't really see much. So you don't know. I mean, there could be a deer 80 yards from me. I have no idea. But I might not see something for 3 days, and I'm sitting there all day. But it's like, that's where the years of knowing what can work, but you have to bring that back into your mind and be like, okay, I gotta be here, because at any second, and I gotta be alert, because at any second that can change, and all of a sudden I had the best season ever. It could go from that easy.
And I think that's more like, I don't think the thing that people like what you're saying right there, and like, I'll tell you something that you might not even be thinking about what you're saying. That comes from success. That comes from a place of success that people don't even realize. It's like, the reason I know if I keep going, I'll kill a bull is because I've been there and I've done it a lot. Right. Well, if you haven't been there and you haven't done it a lot, it's easy to quit, So it's like, you have to be willing to get over that hurdle that the success comes, that you're like, okay, yeah, I haven't called a bull in 8 days, but in 15 seconds, this can be the best season I've ever had. Like, I call into the right pocket and this bull comes running in, I kill him, it's over. Like, I've done it more than once. And it's like, but that you have to have the mental capacity to be like, to either have that come from success, which, I mean, I wasn't always as mentally tough as I am now. Obviously, none of us are. Like, I think some people are born with just like this natural tenacity, right? But like, I remember not wanting to go. I remember like sleeping in, but now it's just like, I don't even think about it. Like, I know it's going to suck. Like, I hate the first half hour of every day elk hunting. I hate it. Like, I really do. The first climb in the morning, I hate it. But it's just like, but I just know that's what I'm going to do. And if I do that success is going to come from it. But it's hard to get over that hump if you haven't, and I think that's a lot of the deal. Like, a lot of guys, that most guys kill an elk every 10 years, they say, right? Well, that's pretty tough to, I don't know how many years in a row I can hunt 30 days straight and not kill an elk before I would be like, screw it, I'm not doing it no more.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you kill, like, if you set a tree stand every day for 30 days a year and didn't kill a buck, you'd be like, oh, I need to do something else. This isn't working.
Yeah.
Right? So the success, I guess, breeds confidence in the fact that, your effort will pay off, and it does. I mean,
like when I go to a new place whitetail hunting and I don't have the history, or like I have an idea, but I'm more apt to be, a little more mobile and moving around and not as patient, because I'm still trying to figure it out, because I don't have that confidence in my head of like, I don't have that success to lean back on. And it's hard to, at that point, to be like, okay, should I stay or should I go? And that's a constant thing that I feel like goes through any hunter's head of like, okay, when do I, move spots, or when do I, continue to push and do that? And it's a really difficult thing to be able to really push through. Like, I know I struggle with that in new places, or like elk hunting. It was so funny. A couple years ago, the last elk tag I had in Montana, it was like my whole career that I spent just trying to find elk and have opportunities. Well, I got into a spot where I was the elk were there, and it was just like, and I was getting close every day, but was not closing. And I was like, okay, I've got new challenges now. Like the stuff that I was worried about before,
Right.
I got past that, but it's like, okay, now how do I actually put an arrow through this body cavity at, inside 30 yards to be able to make this happen? And I was like, it was thick woods and branches seemed like they were always going all the way to the ground, and I couldn't get an arrow through, and I was just like so frustrated. But I learned so much about elk behavior in those 3 weeks, and lost a couple arrows in the process, but it was just like and it's like, okay, now going into this year having a couple elk tags, it's like, okay, I feel more confident about, okay, if this situation happens, I feel better about those things. And that just comes from that experience.
Right. I had a guy message me the other day on the Elk Hunt page, and he's like, okay, people always talk about 10 percenters. The guy's name's Andrew. He's like, people always talk about 10 percenters. Do you feel like, I'll read it, because it was a really good question. It made me think about it a lot. He was saying, being exactly what you're saying, going from a place where you're really confident in your hunting, right? You hunt a spot all the time and you're super confident there, and you go somewhere else and the confidence isn't exactly the same. He just said, I was thinking about something. They say 10% of elk hunters kill 90% of the elk. I agree that's true in one capacity or another. Here's what I wonder. How many of those 10 percenters kill 90% of their elk in one or two locations? I hope that makes sense. In other words, when I looked for sheds, a lot of years I found about 20 a year, but I found 18 of those in the same canyon. Are the 10 percenters good at hunting elk, or just good at hunting the same place in the same elk in the same places? Can a scratch golfer play on a course out of town? It's a good question, right?
That is a good question.
It makes you think about it. And I was like, and my response to him was, I think both. I know guys that are really good, like, we've all got the local guys who kill elk every year, right? But a lot of these guys that you know about, like, let's say Ryan Lampers.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Lampers going to kill elk no matter where he goes.
Yeah,
he just is. You know what I mean? And I have found, like, I grew up hunting the same place, and I started hunting out of state in like 2008. I think 2008 was my first elk hunt out of state. And I found success most everywhere I've went just because I learned how to hunt elk. And like this system, like Cody O's talks about, like his system, right? Like, and so, and one of the things you're talking about, like I wrote an article about this recently for Elk Hunt, like control the controllables, like make sure shit's going to go sideways on a hunt. Like, right. Like the branches are going to be more where you went than they were somewhere else. Right. So make sure like your gear's dialed, your shooting is on point, your calling's good. You know what I mean? Like those things, make sure that you're in good enough shape for the hunt, right? Can control the things that you can control before you get there. Then once you get there, when stuff goes sideways, you can handle those hurdles. Because I think a lot of guys show up and they just don't know. And they're just like, man, well, I've never shot in elevation. I've never shot across the side hill. You know what I mean? I've never, like, I'm out of shape. Like I'm dying the whole day. Like I'm backpacking and I forgot my tent stakes. You know what I mean? Just like if you're dialed and you have this system built, like where, okay, I'm going to go there and I know my calling's good. I know my shooting's good. I know my gear is ready, right? Then you can handle the stuff that you came upon, like the different stuff, But if you show up and everything is just coming at you, you know what I mean? But these guys, back to that guy's question, most of these guys are killing elk all the time or whitetails all the time. They are dialed. Like they got their stuff together. They don't, that success doesn't come, like you said, it's not luck. Like the stuff didn't happen by luck. These guys never stop thinking about it. It's all they think about. Right. And so it's dialed. They show up, they're ready. And so the stuff that comes, it just comes, and they still can find a way to kill elk. But if everything's coming at you, including the spot you're hunting, the terrain you're hunting, and your stuff's not ready, and you're not a very good caller, it's overwhelming. And I think guys just like, whoa, I don't know what to do. I mean, does that make
That's
sense? You know what I'm saying?
No, I think you laid that out really well because you can't control everything, but the things that you can control, if you get those things dialed, that's less to worry about. And then you can
Right.
focus on those problems that are right in front of you and problem solve better versus, okay, they got the problem with all these branches, but I'm also out of breath coming up this hill, so I can barely even see the branches because my eyes are going blurry because my heart's racing so fast as I'm climbing up, and and I can't get the elk close enough because I'm not sure how to call in this situation or what to do versus like some of those things were controllable. You can't control those branches, but you could control the other things
Right.
that maybe it'll get you closer. Or, one thing for me, it was like, all right, I'm hunting those types of areas. I lessened the weight of my arrows to shoot a little bit flatter because I'm a
Yeah.
shorter draw. Not to a point where it's not going to kill the elk, but it's like, okay, if I got these big old heavy arrows and I'm going to penetrate, whatever with, it's like, okay, but when I have an arc at 30 yards, like that's a problem. Like in those scenarios where you're hunting tight country.
Right. And that's the mentality though that you have that really sets a lot of these guys apart, the guys that kill, the guys that don't, because some guys, they just don't think about it. The hunt just didn't go the way they thought it would. Right. And it's like, I walk away like, what did I do wrong? What could I have done to make that go better? And it's like, because I'm not happy without success. I'm not happy about the hunt. Like, I can still enjoy the hunt, and I actually have got a lot better about that. Like, especially if I leave it all out there, or if I pass up bulls that I don't want to shoot. I've gained a lot of perspective, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not happy if things don't go the way they were planned, and I don't kill one because of what I didn't do. Like, that's, what I mean. There's things like I had a great elk tag, one of the best elk hunts I've ever had in 2021 in Wyoming, and I didn't kill a bull. It's the first time I ever walked away from a hunt like, I can't believe I didn't kill one. Because I couldn't have. I could have killed some. I missed a shot on a big bull, and I had a lot of really close calls. And I was fine with it because I knew I left it all out there. You know what I mean? But like a lot of these guys, they go on these hunts and they just can't. It just wasn't my year. Well, why wasn't it your year?
Yeah.
Why wasn't it your year? What did you do wrong? Because there's always something I do wrong. I mean, most years, if I don't kill an elk, and if you're hunting like public land, general season tags in Idaho and Montana and Wyoming, you might get one shot, right? Like, you really might get one shot in a whole season. And, there's guys that get tons of shots, I guess, and apparently they're better hunters than I am. I don't get a lot of shots. But like, I do want to capitalize on the ones I get, and so I can go a whole season, and if I work hard, I know I'll get a shot, and I want all the things that I can control in that moment to be good. You know what I mean? And that's like the years I don't shoot, man. Like, I know, like the years I don't shoot and I pull up on a deer and elk and I'm just like not quite as confident as I should be. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that's a problem. Like that's a me issue. Like, when I miss, it's because I didn't do what I should have to be ready for that moment. You know what I mean? A lot of those guys as well, that's just a factor of the hunt. Well, no, usually it's something you did.
Yeah, and it's the ownership aspect, exactly what you said, Gil, because I've caught myself, blaming things, like say the branches thing. This was a really funny scenario because I was like, man, those stupid branches are in the way, blah, 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 and I just kept getting hung up on it. And I was talking to Josh Boyd. I don't know if you know Josh.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Josh is a very good elk hunter, and he hunts in the thickest of the thick country.
Yeah.
And he showed me a video on his phone where he shot a bull, and he had to shoot it at like 3 yards because it was so thick. And I was like, okay, I'm done complaining. Like that was there was so many things that were my mess ups on there that led to that. That's like this year going into it. I've analyzed the last 5 years and all the animals that I've hunted and where I haven't had success. And normally it comes down to me in the moment of truth making a mistake or not shooting because I wasn't sure of the yardage, and then like, okay, so I wasn't good at guessing yardage, but I also didn't know where my bow was hitting with my 30-yard pin at 38 yards or 37 yards. So that's all I've been practicing this summer was like, so far is like, okay, I know I can shoot at standard yardages and do pretty well, but how do I get better at the pin gapping and all these things, because that's something that I've realized is a fault of mine. And it's like, last year it was like there was a couple different hunts. It's like I should have had the best season of my life, and I didn't because of me screwing up those things. And that, like, I'm like, okay, the scouting aspect, the getting the opportunities, I'm feeling pretty confident in those areas. Now it's time to step it up in these places where I am lacking. And that's just like in my personal journey of like kind of where I'm at with things.
For sure. Like me, like I was thinking about today, I was just like, this evolving aspect. It's like, one of the things I feel like I need to do, like when a bull answers me, like I think I need to gain that extra 50 yards or 100 yards. Like even me, like, and I kill elk I kill a lot of elk, like, but like when that bull answers me this fall, instead of setting up here, like I'm going to go the extra 50 yards or 100 yards, and I'm probably going to scare some elk. Right. But like, I think part of it is like, I love the conversation, the back and forth with the elk. Like that's fun. Right. But ultimately I want to kill the elk. And I feel like if I, like, instead of like getting in the calling situation where we're having this back and forth and he like digs his heels in, he's not coming, right? Instead of like even getting, like, when I get that first answer, I'm going to go the extra 50 yards this year, the extra 100 yards this year, then I'm going to set up and call. I mean, it's just like, and I've had a lot of successful encounters. I've called a lot of elk, but it's like, I just feel like that these elk are just getting a little smarter. And it's like, okay, well, if I take that extra 75 yards into this calling situation, like maybe he's not going to dig his heels in and say, no, I'm just going to march back and forth on this ridge at 200 yards. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the hardest part, like, I feel like I get in these calling scenarios and like these can go on, for 20, 30 minutes. And this bull's like, he is like just staring down there, and I've done this a lot. Like finally he won't come and I'll move in and you'll like run into him. He's sitting there looking at you. It's like, well, before we get engaged in this big conversation and he's totally committed, knock that yardage off then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like knock that yardage off then and then set up and call. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just one of those things. Like a lot of stuff has worked for me, but there's stuff that can work better. And I just got to be constantly working on that. And some guys they're willing to just do the same thing over and over and over. Like whitetails, dude, I'm terrified of heights. And it's a problem, like I cannot get in hang on tree stand. Like terrified. The only stands I sit in are ladder stands. And I can't even set them up myself. Like I have to have somebody do it because I'm so terrified of heights. And so like, I'm going to get a saddle. Like I know that's like the craze, and like, that's not why I'm getting a saddle. I'm getting a saddle because I feel like I will feel secure in it. And I'm going to go 5 feet up in a tree until I'm comfortable. And then I'm going to come down and I'm going to go 7 feet until I'm comfortable. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of these spots, and the reason I'm not killing whitetails, like Missouri last year, I found some really awesome spots, but I'm trying to hunt them on the ground with a bow, and they're coming by me and I can't see them because the undergrowth's too high. It's like, well, do you want to get better at this? Because if so, I got to figure it out. You know what I mean? And so I got to get up in a tree. So that's me. I got to work on me.
Can I give you some advice with that?
Yeah.
So like, one, I do think the saddle will help you a lot because you're constantly connected, and you always have tension on things as you're climbing up, and you're always connected to something. You're never taking a rope off to replace it. It's always, you have two ropes, your tether and then your lineman's rope. But also with being able to be on the backside of that tree, you don't need to go as high. Like I don't like heights. I am rarely above 15 to 17 feet in a tree. Now there's different scenarios. Like you get a really straight tree in the open, it's like it's better to get up a little bit higher so that you're covered. But be on the backside of that tree or getting in a tree that has a bunch of limbs on it. I mean, heck, sometimes I'm 10 feet up the tree, a couple sticks up, and that's all you need to be at to see over that undergrowth. And honestly, sometimes that provides you better shot opportunities than going way up and having too steep of an angle, coming down. So I think that's a good route to go, but I wouldn't even worry about trying to get, 20, 25 feet up. You can do, or like in another part, one thing that I do when I'm in like open trees, I'll get on the backside and I'll stand a lot of times, like kind of up against the tree, just having a big enough saddle platform that's almost like a little tree stand that you can still stand on and, kind of lean up against it. And, even if a doe comes in, you just kind of move with it and, kind of slither behind the tree so she doesn't, pick you out. But
that's what I'm going to try this year. It's just one of those things. Like we all know the whole, like the guys that are really trying to figure stuff out, they know the holes in their game. Right. And like we have holes in our game like we do.
Oh yeah.
And we got to figure those out. And the guys that figure them out and the guys that like fill one hole at a time, man, like they're just, those dudes are like, they're going to kill more elk. They're going to kill more deer. You know what I mean? They're going to kill whatever they're after, and the guys are just willing to just be like, whatever, and I'm glad that all dudes aren't hardcore. I'm glad that all dudes don't want to kill stuff because it'd make it real hard if everybody was doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just wild. You hear guys talk about elk hunting, just like, man, elk are easy to kill. Oh, really? How many, like, that success rate just hovering around 15% for the last 50 years on over-the-counter tags, 85% of dudes aren't killing elk. Tell me how easy it is. So, I mean, it's... Yeah,
and even with technology and gear advancements and all that stuff, that success hasn't changed.
No, I mean, very minimal, like, it's just, it's hard work. And a lot of it is, like you said, just the grit to go out there and do it. So...
Well, I want to go back to something else you said, the two parts of that question that guy asked you about when he was asking you about the spots. So like if someone has, do you think guys just have, good spots? Like what do you think about the I guess advantages of learning an area or spending more time in certain spots? I mean, I know that's, especially from a non-resident, that's harder now because it's harder to get those tags consecutively. But saying even from like a resident standpoint, what do you think about that?
I think there's a lot of value in it. I think it's probably true for all hunting, It's another one of those controllable deal, right? Like you're hunting a spot that you know where the elk are going to go or the deer are going to go when they're pressured or when they're not pressured, feeding patterns or, a lot of that stuff early season compared to late season. Like, I really think I'm a good elk hunter because I grew up hunting a spot that my dad knew really well and he was willing to take me. And I went above and beyond, like, I just kind of took it and run with it. And I learned to hunt elk. And I learned a lot about just elk movements and like elk sounds and all that stuff, where I knew the area. So I was always into elk. And so I just had so many opportunities to learn, and then I could take that same skill set and go somewhere else, just like if you never got a shot at a deer growing up where you lived, like how would you have got good at shooting deer? You know what I mean? But like if you learn to hunt a certain spot and you're one of those guys that's curious enough to learn, I think that there is a lot of value, like an immense amount of value. And if I was a non-resident going to Colorado or Montana or Wyoming or wherever, I would try to go back to a spot. And for me, like, I still want to hunt my same spots I always grew up hunting just because it's fun. And I had like 3 good tags in a row, or a couple of good years in a row. I get a Utah tag and Wyoming tag. And it was so fun last year to just come back to what I'd done forever, and I'd had 2 tags a million times better than anything I've ever hunted here, but it was fun to come back to it, and, but yeah, I think there's an immense amount of value in learning to hunt elk in a spot that you know how to hunt just because you learn about all the things that come along with it. you know? And I have buddies, like, to that guy's point, like, I got a buddy, Sheldon, he hunts one unit in Idaho. Dude is like hardcore. Like, he hunts deer and elk and everything in that one unit, like hunts the high country, hunts his ass off, and he kills a bull and a buck every year. He went to Wyoming with me, killed a really nice buck in Wyoming, but, you know, we were talking, he's like, dude, I really don't want to go anywhere else. Like, I just kind of want to hunt here. And I'm like, cool. Like, that's awesome. You know, like, I want to change the scenery at times. Like, I love hunting new places, you know, like, I will never bitch about non-resident hunting because I love hunting new places, right? I would love to go out. People are like, I want to go out where you guys live and hunt in the mountains there and hunt whitetails. Like, that sounds like a blast to me, you know? And I also want to go to Iowa and hunt them. You know what I mean? But, like, yeah, but I think there's a lot of value to it, but I also think there's a lot of value. I think those same guys, once they hone their craft where they live, I think there's a lot can be learned by going somewhere that you're not familiar with too. And it can take you, like, to that next level. Like, you know, you learn these skills and then you can go here. Okay, the trees go all the way to the ground here, right? The problem you were having. Yeah. You got to overcome that, right? Or the next spot you go is super wide open, you know, like, okay. So it's just a multifaceted, you're learning this aspect of it. Like, okay, I can spot and stalk and I can sit water if I need to, and I can call them in, you know, it's just everything. It just makes you a better, more rounded hunter.
Well, yeah. And the thing about the same spots, cause like I'll have, from a whitetail perspective, I have 2 or 3 spots that I've hunted for 10 years, you know, or longer really. And I may hunt them, you know, I may not actually hunt them for a couple years, but I'm always scouting them every year and checking them out. And the thing is like, I have so much historical data and like, I know what they do. I know what certain times it turns on, and it's like, and things can change, but for the most part, it's like, if I just hunted those places, I feel like that I would be, you know, even more successful with it. But I love hunting new places and trying to learn those. And like, but I do look at it, you know, I try to look at it realistically, and I put everything in like a 3-year plan of like, if I really want to be good at an area, it's going to take me 3 years to learn it and understand how they're moving. And when they escape, do they run right down off the mountain and cross the creek, or do they do a big circle around the point of the ridge and come back up? You know, like deer will act differently in different places. So I always have like a few new places that I mess around in every year, but then I have some of my, you know, old trusty spots and then the ones in the middle. And it's fun that way. But even like when I was hunting elk in Colorado, there was 3 years I hunted one unit, and it was an extremely pressured area over the counter and stuff. But by that 3rd year, I was getting pretty good at getting on elk, where the first year I was just trying to find elk. But I started learning what they were doing, and that there was so much value in doing that. There's just also this part of me that's just like, man, I love seeing new country. Like, my one tag I have this year is literally just because of location, that I've wanted to hunt an area like that and spot and stalk and do it that way. And that's why I got the tag.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, I think there's a lot of value in learning a spot. And then I think the dude that learns that and then he learns to hunt other areas, like, he's just that much better. I mean, yeah. And I can bring back what I learned in other places and hunt my old haunts, and I think I'm better because of it. You know, I mean, but to each their own, whatever you want to do. I think I think you can be a really effective hunter regardless. Like you said, you want to hunt your one spot and just kill bucks there. Awesome. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with killing big bucks, no matter if it's in the same spot or not. But yeah.
So I do want to ask you, and this is kind of selfish question based off of the one hunt I have this year, but I'm be doing mostly like spot and stalk, and I know you've liked doing that. I mean, you've done everything from calling to spot and stalk, but that was like where, you know, I was learning a bunch of stuff from your videos in the past on your Hunt DIY YouTube page. But like with spot and stalk, what are some things that you think about, or you think that people make mistakes with, or what are some things? Just, it's kind of a general question, but just kind of getting in conversation about it.
Man, just like I didn't start I just grew up calling. I just loved calling. My dad, so my dad was really into it. I loved hunting with my dad. He just loves calling elk because that's what we did, right? And 2011, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 2011. No, it would have been 10 because 11 I actually killed my first bull spot in Stalk. 2010, last day of the season, we'd been just having a rough go, and we were way up high on this mountain. I looked clear across the canyon, way over there, 2,000 drop, 1,500 climb to get this last day of the season. And I'm like, my brother's looking at me like, I'm going. Like, I'm just going to go for it, And I went over there, and they were bedded in the wide open, above tree line, kind of on this cool flat. And I got up there, and I'm just like, man, this bull's got all these cows. He's not going to come. He's not going to come. He's 30 cows. And I just stalked in there, and I got within range of his cows, 30 yards. And, dude, it was the coolest, biggest, sour spot in my hunting career ever. I was taking the pictures of this bull before, I was in the trophy photos, and he's just screaming his head off, and there's this rock band that runs out. They're feeding in the creek, and if I got out of the creek, my wind was going up, but if I stayed in that creek bottom, the wind was blowing straight down. I walked straight up the creek bottom, got up there, peek around this rock. It's dude, the most picturesque peaks, grass meadow, gorgeous. He's screaming his head off. All of a sudden comes around the rocks. And I'd been ranging those cows, and I don't know what I did, just a dumb moment. He came in, turned, put his head down, great big bull, watered, shot right over his back. But I'd snuck into this herd, and I was just dude, that was so easy. You know what I mean? That was so easy. And so the next year, my father-in-law drew an elk tag in New Mexico the first 10 days of September. And we got back. He didn't kill a bull. It was tough. I mean, it was a good hunt. One of the better units, but it was a severe drought year, and it can really affect the antler growth. We just didn't see any big bulls, and it was a total bummer. But we got back. I got to my camp where everybody's at, and everybody's sitting out there. My dad's drinking a beer, and everybody's just sitting there, and they look way up above camp. There's this herd of elk comes out, and they're all looking at this bull, and I hadn't got to hunt elk yet. I just been with my father-in-law, and it was 11th of September, and I'm I gave everybody a chance. You gonna go? You gonna go? It was the most, looking at this spot is my mentality, as a caller, it was dumb. We're not gonna kill that elk, right? The big open hillside, a little bit of timber, there's a little knob in the middle, and they're right on the top of that knob. And everybody's, no, I'm not going to go. They'd hunt that morning. I just got into camp, had not hunted. I'm I'll go. And they're all what are you going to do? I would go around the right side, or I'd go around left. I said, you see that tree right before that knob? So I'm going to walk up there. I'm going to drop my backpack to that tree. I'm going to walk right around to that next tree. I'm going to sneak right on the next tree, and I'm going to kill that bull. And you're all going to have to walk up there anyways to help me pack it out. Sure as shit. Walked up there, dropped my pack at that tree. They were up there. I just snuck around, sat by this tree, and within yardage of the cows. The bull walked right out, and I shot him. He died. They all watched it through their spotting scopes.
Really?
And it was just a light bulb moment. Oh, okay, this really works. You know what I mean? And I guess the long way to tell you is you can get away with so much more than you think. I mean, so much more than you think. You got a whitetail come to a tree stand, you can't move, right? You're not getting away with a lot, but elk, especially feeding elk, meandering elk, you can get away with so much. And especially if there's any sort of calling going on, they're big, they make a lot of noise. And if you, especially a lot of them, they'll kind of have a tendency to watch their back trail and their front, right? But if you parallel them, you can get away with a lot, and when the topography breaks and gives you your chance, take it. Run. Whatever you have to, you take that, and don't just, that's one thing to tell people. Don't just pop over the top and here I am, But,
yeah.
You take that topography and they went in this draw, and there's this ridge. You take that topography and the obvious path, they're going to come out, right there. You can get away with so much if you're. And it's a really fun way to hunt and a really effective way to hunt that most people don't realize how effective it really is. I mean, I will stalk, and I love calling. I will stalk every chance I get. Every opportunity I'm given, I will take it because I feel like my odds are so much higher than actually calling that bull into me.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, so much higher. Just because.
Nice.
I mean, you call, man, like they come in, you've called them in, they know where you're at, right? But if they have no idea you're in the country, all of a sudden there's an arrow, they don't even know what hit them. You know, and being able to shoot a little bit further, you know, like I added up all my bulls years ago, and my average at one point, last time I averaged was like 31 yards, you know, average kill on elk, you know, because I kill them all calling for the most part. But, you know, like that spot and stalk, and I'm not a big advocate of like super long range shooting. Like that's not my thing, you know, but like being able to shoot that 50-yard shot, 60-yard shot, especially in spot and stalk when they don't know you're there, dude, shots come pretty easy at 50, 60 yards when they don't know you're there.
Yeah.
When they're just moving naturally, you know?
Well, yeah. And especially if they don't know that you're there, it's not like, you know, they're not going to probably duck the arrow or like move or anything. It's just, yeah. I mean, even when I shot my bull in Idaho, it wasn't spot and stalk, but they had no idea I was there when they came, you know, kind of came by, and it was just like, I mean, that bull didn't know what happened till that arrow sunk into him. That was 60 yards. And, but yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Just because like I said, you can get inside that range pretty, you know, once you get inside that, like it was crazy. Like I killed a bull. It was like probably 17. My wife and I actually backpacked in, and there was a huge herd elk, great big herd elk. Probably like a 320 6x7, probably like 50 cows, multiple satellite bulls and some spikes. And she just stayed behind me, and I snuck up there. And like, at this point, it was like 27th of September. Like it was go time, you know? And I just said, I'm going to kill any decent bull I get a shot at, you know, 5 or 6 point. Like come up over this ridge, and like, I'm like sneaking along. The bulls are just screaming like Jurassic Park below me. And I'm sneaking in there. And like, there's these 2 spikes all of a sudden. I'm like, crap, 2 spikes at like 30 yards. And there's like a game trail right below them. I walked right past them. They never even lifted their heads. They sat there feeding, like, because there was so much commotion going on. I just snuck down the trail another 50 yards and killed the 5 point. Like those spikes were still just standing there. It's just like there was just so much going on that they just, if you blend in and move slow and don't make noise, you can get away with so much. I actually missed that bull, and he was so like, I missed him, and he just like hopped a couple times, had no idea. I just put another arrow on and shot him. Like he just had no idea anybody was there. I never called one time. And literally there was hundreds of, and in that point, and to that point too, like what would calling have done? There was like bulls literally just ripping every 30 seconds. Like what would I have done to change that?
Yeah, what is your call going to do that's different than all of these other ones that are calling at that point?
Yeah, because they're down there in this big rut frenzy. You know, the bull I shot was just like like literally a satellite orbiting the herd, right? And like all this stuff, if you know, you might call, I guess, and call that same bull in, but like everything he wants is right there. You know, and so what would I have done? So at that point, you might as well call. I mean, you might as well stalk. And it makes you a better hunter. Like it's one of those things we're talking about, you know, like if that's a thing you can add to your repertoire of like, okay, they're not calling right now. You know what I mean? You know, if you're the whitetail hunter, it's like, well, they're not coming here, but I'd go sit that water hole and probably kill one. You know, like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, that's just something different. I've killed bulls out of ground blinds. Same thing. It's like this, you know, what I was doing wasn't working. So
dude, I've thought about it when the spot I was in Montana, these elk would do very similar things on a daily basis. They'd take a different route, but eventually they come back to the same route. And I was like, man, I should have packed my saddle in here and sat in a tree. If I sat for 3 days, you know, I was like, I could probably, you know, do well with this. The hard part was just like, all I do is sit in a tree when I'm whitetail hunting. I didn't want to do that, but it was just, you start thinking about those different things to do. Or like one thing I learned when I was in Montana, and after I saw this herd bull, I decided like that was the bull I wanted to hunt. And I could call the satellites, but that herd bull, he had every cow in the world with him. There was no reason that he was going to come. He might answer me or whatever, and it'd be cool. But I learned pretty quickly that just to put the calls in my pocket. And when I finally got an opportunity at him, it was literally just shadowing him and just like moving, sprinting at times, just running as he was moving his herd and trying to get to where we collided together. But it was like from learning that in that instance, it was like, okay, calling is not going to work with this bull.
If you want to kill bulls, if you just want to kill nice bulls, calling works really well. But like you said, like, everybody's like, well, that situation you just said, like, okay, I'm going to get right in on him. I'm going to scream right in his face. That might work sometimes, but mostly, almost always, even that big bull is going to take his cows and he's going to leave. You know what I mean? And so I would say your odds are almost 75% better to just put your call in your pocket and go. Like, just try to, like you said, like exactly what you just said, like, do whatever you can to make your paths cross. Like, okay, they're working this way. If I double time it here, maybe I can catch them right here, and then you're going to be way ahead than just, I'm going to call at him just for the sake of calling at him. Be one of the 200 bugles that have happened today. It's just not that, it's just not that productive.
Well, it was so funny, but also frustrating that, they would go and they'd bed in this area, and the big bull would on this knob, and then he'd have the cows around him and the satellites being, it was like literally a perfect, like how the earth is and everything going around it. And he was in the center, and it would depend on which way he'd take his cows in the evening. So like I'd try play in the morning. Usually that didn't work. And then I'd sit there, get pretty close, but not, if there's wind shifts, I wasn't going to blow him out in the day. And I realized like, okay, I wasn't going to get to him during that day. I just got to see where he's going to go in the evening and try to push it. And it literally took 5 or 6, it might have been longer days of not working before it finally did, of just putting myself in the game of like, and then that's where I hit a branch and hit him in the backstrap. But it was like, I just literally was sprinting after him, trying to stay off from the wind. But I learned at one point when they were in that rut frenzy, nothing really mattered, and I just need to go. And just like, so I was just running, and one of his cows squirted out, and he went to like herd her back in, and that's how I got my shot. But it was just like I just had to keep doing that thing, because it was like, all right, these other things weren't working, but I have a feeling that if I keep doing this, there's a chance of it working.
And that's one thing also to note, like that as I've got older and started hunting, trying to hunt, especially like with that Wyoming tag, like trying to hunt bigger bulls, like instead of like Idaho a lot of times, I'm just trying to kill a 6-point, but like you're trying to hunt big bulls, like, huh? Yeah,
that's a big bull to me.
But you hunt these, these herds, like you're saying, like that bull will do exactly what you said. Like, the cows are a pain in the butt, they'll go do this and that. But if you can like get into that perimeter, sneak within that perimeter without calling, to that edge, like within bow range of the cows, 40 yards, 50 yards. And then just, if you have the wind right, then you just be patient. Because the cow, the bulls will always circle the herd. Like that bull that I missed, I told you that cool scenario. He was just circling the herd, checking every cow. And I just had to wait for my time for him to get there. Right. It's like if, I almost killed a great big bull in Wyoming on that hunt. Same way. I just got into him and I didn't say nothing. I just got into the herd, and finally this cow broke and ran over right in front of me. He came 30 yards by me. I just couldn't stop him. You know what I mean? But same, if you get within their zone, like with your effective range, if, all you need them to do is make that 30-yard mistake, they're probably going to make it if they're bedded there. Because those bulls are just constantly wearing themselves out, circling those herds, especially in mountainous, like anywhere really, they work hard to keep tabs on them elk, and they do.
That's something you just saying that is something that I think earlier on in the hunt, I could have had an opportunity where I was sneaking in on, and I had cows like all around me bedded. Like I'm sitting there watching, and then I just kept pushing because I could hear him bugling, and I tried sneaking through them, and they ended up catching me and blowing out. But it probably would have been wise of me at that point, once I got to that point, just to sit there and wait.
And the hardest part, you want to blow a call, you want to push it a little more. It's like at that point you're probably hosed. It's probably going to go bad no matter what, right? Like
Yeah.
you're going to get that fickle wind's going to get you, but it's like your odds probably are better. Like when you're within range of, you can see cows that you can shoot. He's probably going to come by. Like last year we got in on a bull, my buddy Matt and I did, maybe 2 years ago, and he got within range of all the cows. And that is the one scenario. The one cow that bull wanted, like she must have been like full estrus. He never came to the other cows. Like he didn't care what they were doing. That's generally not the case though. I mean, when the one cows find the end, she's like a whitetail. When the one does find the end, right? The buck's gonna stay with her and not leave. But just a general herd scenario, the bull's probably going to come by and check on them all. And if you can get the wind long enough to wait that out, you're in a good spot if you can be in that situation.
Yeah, and probably if you're not, say you're not as picky, and there's other bulls in there, something's gonna come, be kind of circling around. Because like I said, the way it was like a perfect scenario of like that bull had that high knob and he had cows around him, and then the satellites were kind of mixed in with the cows, but also on the outside there, it was like this fortress around him. And it was really cool to see that. And it was funny most of the time because it was so, like I said, thick woods, that there was a lot of those bulls I never saw, but I got to know them from their bugle.
Yeah, that's
to
fun.
The point where I felt like I knew them. I was like, oh, there's that one with, the herd bull. I called him the Marlboro Man because he just sounded like he was smoking cigarettes. Like he just had a raspy, bugle, and it was really cool to see that and learn the elk dynamics and just kind of how they operated. It was really cool.
Yeah, taking the time to actually take that in, though. I mean, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot about how you can stalk them, just watching them, like watching a bull for a herd from a mile away. Okay. But if I went there and I got to there, he's circling like every 10 minutes, he's coming by that same tree, or every 20 minutes he's coming by there, Like I had a bull with my son last year. My son's only 14, and last year he almost killed a bull. We got in some really thick timber, and this bull was doing exactly what I told you I want to move in on this year because he's just pacing back and forth on the hill. And I finally, we were over here and this bull was pacing above us, and they'd pace back above us, like within 150 yards. And he's kind of like at that age where he doesn't we're in super thick timber. He's not real sure about striking out on his own. Right. But I'm like, hey, so I took him over here. We're like on this bench. I'm like, okay, we're right here. And that bull is going over to there. Right. He goes, and then he's coming back to here. Right. He goes, yeah. I said, okay, I'm going to go over there to that flat spot where we were at, and I'm going to call. And when you hear that bull go over above me, you climb as fast as you can, straight up this ridge, 150 yards. Like best guess you can say, 150 yards, and just sit down. Because that bull is just up there. He had no cows. Same thing, though. Had no cows, but he was just going back and forth. He got that bull at 10 yards. That bull came across 10 yards. He didn't get a shot at it. But it's just one of those things, and that's hard to do by yourself, right? But you can, because same thing. That bull's going, okay, I'm going to sit right here. And as soon as he goes over there, I'm going to climb as fast as I can. It don't take you very long to climb 100 yards, right? And so just wait for that bull to come back. Where I noticed when I was younger, or a lot of guys, they'll just sit there, just keep calling. Oh, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah. I love hearing elk bugle as much as anybody, but it's like they got, but if you get up there, he might walk right in front of you.
Yeah.
It's just that thinking outside the box, I might need to move, or the same thing, when you have a bull calling, a bull coming in, I'm going to call here because I know he's coming. I'm going to get up and I'm going to move 20 yards because those bulls know exactly where you're at, to the foot, probably they know exactly where you're at, So I kill a lot of bulls that way. I kill a lot of bulls by myself, and I'll call, and then I'll just when I know they've committed, and you can get away with a lot. That's another thing to tell your people, like you get away with a lot calling too, not necessarily when they're in front of you, like standing there looking at you, but it's like, I'm right here by myself. Okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to move 15 yards, and that bull's still looking here. You know what I mean? So when he comes in, I'm ready to shoot him. So,
well, I like that story because it's so hard to for me to sit here and ask. I like how you tell things through stories because it's so much easier to visualize it because it's so hard to say tactics because not everything's the same. Right. It's situational where I visualize exactly what happened. Even in my head, I was like, I can picture this little bench up there as he's going back and forth, and you're down below, and how you move through that. Like I could picture that.
He's been called to, probably by me because I've been in there the couple days before, down to the bowl, and he's like, man, I like the sound of it, but I'm just not quite convinced enough, and it's like, you're asking a lot. You're asking a lot for a bull to come storming down there. He has no idea what's down there, whether it's a camo dude or a great big elk, it's like, so you're asking a lot, and a lot of them just aren't going to do it. I don't care who you are. Like, not every guy can call in every bull. I feel like I'm a pretty good elk caller, and like, I don't call a lot of them in, so if you can give yourself that one advantage, like you said, okay, he's over there, I'm going to be there. The next time he comes there, that's where I'm going to be, and my 14-year-old kid, it almost worked, and like, hopefully that's something he's putting in his memory bank. Like, oh, okay, that works, So,
that bull was sitting up there, and he's like, there's that Zach. He's the guy I watch on YouTube. He's like, I'm not going down there. I'm not falling for that, right? He's like, I'll play with him a little bit from up here, but I'm not going down there.
That got Earl. We're not gonna get us. So.
Oh man. No, man, this is good. I enjoyed having this conversation talking about elk. I'm getting fired up. I mean, at the time of recording this, it's middle of July here. It'll be a few more weeks before this comes out, but like, just it's all in, getting ready for September now, and just oh man, so.
My buddy's got a goat tag. I'm going on a goat hunt in Montana, mountain goat hunt the 1st of September, and today we were talking like going over gear stuff. It's in like really thick grizzly country. Like, do we need to carry a bear fence or whatever? And he's got a goat tag, and he's like, dude, I've kind of like put on the back burner, but I got to start thinking about elk today. He's like, dude, I'm jacked to go elk hunting. I'm like, you got a goat tag, you're jacked to go elk hunting. I'm like, yeah, me too, man. I am too. So, can't wait. So,
what about you? What tags you got this year?
Oh, dude, it's wild. So I drew a Nevada deer tag that opens the 10th of August. I'll leave that here in just a couple weeks. And then go on the goat hunt with Josh, and then come back and hunt elk all the rest of September. And then I drew a muzzleloader elk tag in Idaho, so I probably will buy another tag for archery season. And then my boy and my father-in-law both drew rifle bull tags that open in October. And then my father-in-law hasn't drawn ever. He finally drew, and he's 72, just had both knees replaced this winter, so it's going to be rough. But and then my dad finally drew his Wyoming tag that opens the 22nd of October. My brother drew a Hunt Expo tag that opens in November in Utah. And then is that it? I think that's it. Oh, my daughter drew a rifle antelope tag.
Oh, so, my gosh, man, that's a stacked year.
They're stacked, and so like I've been putting in all over for 15, 18 years in some units, and my wife was like, "What happens when you draw everything?" And I'm like, "Oh, that never happens. Like that'll never happen, And like I didn't draw everything this year. The only thing I drew was a Nevada deer tag that I shouldn't have drawn. I had no business drawing. Got lucky, but like there's enough tags. After Idaho came out, I'm like, okay, that's too many. Like we have too many tags, but it's going to be fun trying. So,
that's we were talking earlier about the opportunity standpoint and everything. I mean, honestly, the point game is the way to tags, like I'm finally at a point where I started applying 7-8 years ago now that I'm starting to, I see the next few years get stacked with some mid-level tags. That's what I'm trying to draw as is starting to stack those. So I'm just, playing that point game in different states and
what you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
You have to build a plan. Like I have a plan, like luckily I live in an elk state where I can plan for, every year, at least for now, every year, and then plan on that Montana or Wyoming tag every, 3 or 4 years, like as your mid-level, and then, have your big, like Arizona's like my pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I've got like 18, 19 points, like that's my one, but yeah, you're just gonna have to build a plan. If guys want to hunt, they're gonna have to. You're gonna have a multi-tiered plan of how they're gonna get elk tags, and it sucks, but I think for at least for the foreseeable future, it's gonna be doable. But I think I don't know. I'm worried about by the time my boy's my age if he's gonna be able to hunt elk very often. So
yeah. Oh, most definitely. And I mean, with what you're doing over at Elk Hunt, you and Cody Rich doing the stuff over there, information on that kind of stuff as far as applying for tags and building those plans.
We're probably going to do some more of that this winter. More than anything, we just have the course. It's just Cody built a cool course that's really, I took it like as a guy who's hunted elk a lot, when I came on with Cody, I'm like, okay. And Cody brought me on to run the day-to-day stuff and write all, because he knows I'm a writer. He had me come in and do all the blog stuff. Like, we just want to put more content out. Well, I'm going to take his course, It's like, I don't need to take his course. I don't need to take it, right? But I took the course, and it is really cool. And I think it really gives, I mean, trying to not sales pitch, but having a system is what these guys have, is what we've talked about in this whole podcast today, is I'm going to go to this area and this is what I'm going to do to make sure it happens, and this course is a super cool course. It just shows you how to set up your own system, and it is really valuable. I especially think for guys that haven't done it, or guys that have been doing it for a long time and they just can't figure it out. It's just, they're just scatterbrained. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go there with this plan to kill elk. And it works. And if you really break down the guys that kill all the time, no matter what it is, your whitetails or elk, whatever, we all have a plan. We don't show up and just throw spaghetti noodles at the wall and see what sticks. That's not what we do. Right. And so we're just doing Cody's, obviously lots of podcasts. Like you had Cody on, we're doing elk content every week there. I'm writing articles every week, got a newsletter. We're giving lots of cool stuff away. I mean, gave away Matthews last week and gave away a Maven the month before. And all you got to do is sign up for the newsletter and you get in for free gear. So
heck yeah.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. That. And where do people find that at? Is that Elk Hunt?
The website is Elk Hunt 201.
Elk Hunt 201. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then social media. And then, I kind of write all over the place, write for a lot of different people. And, just kind of out here grinding like you are. So.
And then, your Instagram is hunt_DIY.
That's
it. Are you going to fire up the YouTube channel again?
Man, I took a break for, as you can tell, for a while there, we were hot and heavy on it, but man, I don't know. That's one of the, I think I am going to film 2 or 3 hunts this fall.
Are you?
And more probably in the filmer seat than I am in the shooter seat, but yeah. So, but I mean, we need to get going back on it. I just needed a break. We went into it pretty hot and heavy, and man, dude, it's hard to find guys that want to go film. It's hard business, dudes want to go hunting. They don't want to go filming, it's and so, but I'm going to film that goat hunt for sure. And then film my dad's hunt. I'm actually going to try to probably hire somebody to film my dad's hunt so I can just enjoy it. But it's going to be like my dad's last big hurrah, I'd imagine. He's had 6 back surgeries in the last 7 or 8 years. So, so his Wyoming hunt, he burnt 14 points on it. It should be a good hunt. So I think we're going to film that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I look forward to seeing you if you do put some stuff out there and having it. But I understand, I'm in the same boat with the filming aspect. It adds another complexity to everything.
I like it. I'm not saying I don't like it. It's a little harder. So
Yeah.
But no, this
No,
has been
for
fun. I really sincerely I've enjoyed kind of following you guys, what you guys do, because I'm trying to learn, just
Yeah.
kind of sponge and soak it all up because I got a lot to learn. So, but
Heck yeah, man. Well, if you ever have any questions, you reach out.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with your buddies. Leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe. If you want to check out more content like this, there's plenty in the links below. We truly appreciate having you guys along with us.